Delegates, I do have your attention. So, we will break the informal caucus at 1:15. Mr. Christo from Agri would like to have a word with you. And then during the lunch period, you will continue with your informal caucus. Is that duly noted, delegates? Thank you very much. You may continue. Thank you very much. We would like to give the floor to Mr. Christo from AgriSA. Delegates, we all welcome Mr. Christo from AgriSA with a round of applause.
Okay, you ready? You want to make agriculture sexy? Okay, now let's do that. So, I'm going to ask one question at this point in time. There are two types of tools that we use here today to write down things. Maybe those two tools. Yes?
That's a pen.
A pen.
And a paper.
Pen and paper. Okay, that's the one set. And what else do we use here to write down things? Your laptops or your phone, right? So in other words, there's a manual set of tools and there's a electronic set of tools. Which one of those are the sexiest?
Electronic.
Come again?
Electronic.
Okay, well, what do you do when the power goes down? Oh, power!
You lose your.
Okay, now let's use that tool, that sexy tool of yours. Okay? I want you to go onto the following website. Right? I'm going to spell it for you. It's MAXHOSA, Makosa.africa.com. Okay, you got that? Let me spell it to you again. MAXHOSA.africa.com. Okay, who's got it? And I want the lady over there to come to me. No, don't look to the back.
Oh, me?
Yes. Okay. Tell me the story on that website. Yeah, anyone? Site categories. Okay, it's MAXHOSA.africa.com. You got it? Okay, yes?
Is it a fashion website?
Come again?
Is it a fashion website?
That's right.
Okay. It says, okay, Makosa Africa is Africa's leading luxury, premium, and heritage fashion and lifestyle brand. The designs showcase the beauty, culture, language, and aspiration of the Xhosa people, evolved and amended in a modern way in a current design context. It translates into a form that resonates with multiple fashion markets globally.
Excellent. And who is the gentleman who started it? Raduma, right? So he started it a couple of years back. What did he do? He looked around himself and he said to him, look at the clothes that this Van der Rheede guy wears, you know? And when he looked inside, he said, oh, Italian fabric. You know, this is so un-African to wear Italian jacket. He says, I am going to take, look at this, I'm going to take Xhosa patterns, clothes, and I'm going to modernize it, and I'm going to create something that is authentic African. Isn't this beautiful?
Yeah.
Yes? Okay. But, yes, you get the idea.
Yeah.
Right? Now, we have become so reliant on imports from China and from other parts of the world, and there's certainly not anything wrong with it. But the material, right? This is made of cotton. Where does the cotton come from? From South Africa or other parts of Africa. Some of it is made of wool. It comes from Africa, other parts of South Africa. So what I'm trying to tell you today is agriculture without a purpose, right, won't take us very far.
Yeah.
So we need to create an entire value chain. Right? The wool that we produce goes in its raw form to Europe, to the fashion houses there, and in its raw form to fashion houses in China. And what happens? It comes back as a piece of cloth or a piece of cloth. Right? And that, at the end of the day, will not solve the issues that you spoke about this morning. Because we fail to utilize our primary produce or products and change that, translate that into value-added products further down the value chain. So my first request to you today, or my first exercise for you today is, each one of you come from a particular African country. I want you to find the indigenous clothing patterns or clothes that people wear in your particular regions. And I want you then to go and use your creative mind. Just read here. The re-engineering of African minds to create and cultivate effective African solutions for African problems. Now imagine, you go back home and you look in your area and say, wow, look at this indigenous clothes that people wear. I am going to start my own fashion line. I'm going to take this clothes and I'm going to modernize it, make it even more beautiful, right? And out of that, I'm going to start my own factory. And where's the factory going to source its products from? From the local farmers, the wool and things like that. In the process, you're going to create jobs and stuff like that. Will that be a nice challenge for you? Right? And I want you to bring it back to the Mbeki Foundation. To say, but these are my ideas. Now I know some of you will never be fashion designers. I'm not saying it. I'm just saying it. I'm just asking that especially people with a mindset for design should look at that option. I'm not saying all of you must. Okay? Ms. Mbeki, is that a challenge for them? A practical challenge? Maybe your input?
Actually, I was thinking when they're thinking about Amakosa, there's a lady here. Look, she just passed away, but her daughter is taking over. Buyo Masati. She's got, they're creating from the Eastern Cape, the wool, I don't know whether it's goat wool or something, but it makes a mohair.
Mohair.
And she has produced a fashion line. She is exporting, but also exporting and producing here. And she's created her own line. So it's when I was thinking to say what the asset-based development is that the solutions that I was listening to have to be done by somebody else. But the solutions we want is what you can do and you will do. Whether you are producing, what is it, what the bees come, honey and other things, that you can take a product from the natural environment, you grow them. But when you say the whole value chain, do it.
Okay, now, I want you to go onto another website for me. Because you love this tool, it's a sexy tool. Right? Don't you think she looks beautiful? Yes. Don't you think this is a very sexy idea? Okay, now let's go to the next website. I want you to type in the following letters for me. W, O, L, F, G, A, T. Whom of you can pronounce that? Okay, Wolfgat is an Afrikaans word, right? It's my mother tongue language. .co.za. Go on to that. Right? got it? Okay, what does it say? wolfgat.co.za. And I want you just to click on the left-hand side, and I want you to read the following: a cave called Wolfgat. Okay? Whom of you can have found that? Okay, read that for me.
Okay. Apart from the restaurant building dating back some 130 years, the placement of Wolfgat is especially meaningful to us. Is especially meaningful to us because of the location of the Wolfgat cave on the premises, a site of immense archaeological and geological significance. According to leading archaeologist John Parkington, the Wolfgat cave is a substantial chamber lying under an unusually large calcrete shelf. Almost certainly, the chamber and the passages leading into it owe their origin to underground stream erosion that has removed softer sand from below the cemented shelf. An initial archaeological survey of the cave revealed ceramic remains and sheep bones dating back from some time in the last 2,000 years. Bone, marine shell, ostrich, eggshell, ceramics, beads, and stone artifacts were also found, and patches of bedding and hearths are also expected to be buried here. Local legend has it that the underground passages of Wolfgat Cave extend some kilometers inland, and some even say that it stretches all the way into Cape Columbine Reserve, with more than one southern exit.
Okay, so I just want you to go to the other part of the website where it says a seasonal tasting menu. All right. Anyone else would like to read that? Okay, it says, you want to read that?
Wolfgat offers a unique dining experience showcasing a selection of indigenous ingredients specific to our coastal location. Drawing inspiration from the surrounding landscape and its dramatic seasonal transformation, Former's Van de Meere signature continental food menu comprises a series of tasting dishes presented in 7 courses. Sustainable seafood, local lamb and venison, and seasonal velkos is featured, enhanced by wild herbs, seaweeds from the local rock pools, and pickings from the garden.
Okay, and what is the key word in that? Indigenous. You see where I'm going? I've showcased what you can do with indigenous clothing and embroidery, indigenous, what's it called, jewelry, all of those things, right? You find your inspiration not in front of the Queen of England's palace. You find it at home, in your street where you live, in the village that you grow up. And how do you take that indigenous food? You know what, this restaurant, I think it's one of 50 Michelin restaurants in the world. Now, can you believe it? Somebody saw the idea, brought the indigenous elements together, and that person has created a Michelin restaurant along the west coast of South Africa. Right? Along the west coast of Africa. Not where do you find the most Michelin restaurants? In France. Right? But he created Southern South Africa. Now I ask you, with the African continent with the most beautiful histories, the most beautiful sights, with the coastline that is second to none, right? Where's the inspiration from your guys to bring all of these elements together and say, we are going to create an indigenous food restaurant that can compare with the best of the world? When I was as young as you, at that time I looked very different. I had a massive afro, you know, and I was a youngster. I loved to be a young person, very radical at my age, because we came through a terrible system called apartheid, and we fought that system by all ways and means. But you know, I've said to myself, one day, when I am in a better position, I want to share these ideas also with young people. Now, the next challenge, obviously, for you is, right, some of you will look at design elements, indigenous elements, look at different clothing styles in your communities, come up with your own design line, whatever they call it. The next one is, I want you to go into your communities wherever you live and think of what are the indigenous crops that they produce in this area. How can I translate those indigenous crops into a new menu? How do I then attract tourists to my place where I run my restaurant? And is there a particular indigenous history? Now, this place's history goes back 2,000 years ago. Do you know who were the people that landed up here 2,000 years ago in South Africa? They were the Khoi people. They were the first herders. They brought their animals from parts of Botswana down to the west coast. And they then created different tribes, the Kokokwa, the Khoiram, different types of tribes all along the coast. And they lived in symbiosis with the Bushmen. The Bushmen were the people that were not herders, they were hunters, right? And they lived again in caves. A fascinating history that we often forget in South Africa. And the interaction between the Khoi and the isiXhosa people. You know where the isiXhosa people get their click from? From the, not the Khoisan, from the Khoi people. Remember, there's no such people as Khoisan. Right? Khoi people were people in their own right, and the San people were people in their own right. Okay, let me don't waste your time. I want you to go to the next website. Now we're becoming even more practical. ZHAUNS.co.za. ZHAUNS.co.za. Right? Anyone who can tell me what's on that website? Anyone? Okay, let me just also type it in on my side. ZHA, yeah, go. Okay, what is written on right on front of that website? Just go to home. Okay. It says there, Africa's leading supplier of machines. Now, this is very, very important. This is one of the suppliers that provides machines that can make anything from juice to small-scale milling of maize and wheat. Also, machines that can make toilet paper. Machines that can make anything that you can think of, right? And those machines are available on the market. So the next idea for you is then to go back to your community and say, wow, in my community there's huge unemployment, right? Where can I find machines to create my own manufacturing factory on a small scale? Don't go spend your parents' last bit of pension money, right? Take your savings, say, with this machine, I am going to start my own little business. Whether it's a machine that can make popcorn, right? Whether it's a machine that can make juice, and not any juice, you want to make a juice that will help people with COVID, for example. You know what happened during lockdown? I went to the pharmacy, and I asked the pharmacist, listen, don't you have some nice ginger tea for me? And he says, yes, there's ginger tea with honey. And I bought a pack of this ginger tea. And when I looked at where it was produced, where do you think that ginger tea came from? From China. I said, but how is it possible? We have our own farmers producing ginger. We have our own farmers producing honey. Why didn't anyone take this next step to say, bring those elements together, we create our own tea? Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that importing from China is anything wrong with it. I'm just saying, why should we leave that gap open? for other people to follow, where we can grab that opportunity and create. And you know what? What happened? That big pack of ginger tea was in the region of 50 rand. During COVID, it almost doubled. It went up to 100. And I love my ginger tea, right? Especially at my age. You need to drink a lot of ginger tea to stay alive. Okay, right. So look at that, and I want you to come up with ideas on how do I create small-scale manufacturing in my community with suitable machines. You bring it to the foundation. The next one, I want you, and somebody said it earlier, somebody said, why don't we use our indigenous languages to create jobs for people? Now hear me well. I speak Afrikaans, I come from an Afrikaans community. Afrikaans language, unfortunately, was sort of appropriated, before apartheid, during the colonial times. It was never a language that was spoken by the Dutch. The Dutch spoke Dutch. You know who spoke Afrikaans? Yeah? The slave people, the South African people, the Khoi people, because they then translated Dutch into a language that they can make sense of. That's why in Afrikaans you do not get plural and singular forms. It's a simplified language. In Afrikaans, hulle is, ons is. In English it means he is, they is. Right? So in English and in Dutch and your other languages that you have the plural form. It's a simplified language. But that language was developed. That language consists of almost 6 to 7 newspapers. It's got massive TV channels, I think 4 or 5 TV channels. It's got festivals all over South Africa. Yes, to the exclusion of people who do not speak Afrikaans. That's the sad part of it. But what am I saying to you is, if that language that is spoken by a few million people can achieve that, why can Zulu, that consists of 16 million people, can't create language tools? Right? Is it because they're the same? Because there's a massive language industry. There's a massive radio television industry. Right? If we don't create those opportunities through indigenous languages. Remember we spoke about indigenous. What did we spoke about first? Indigenous clothing, indigenous food, restaurants, menus, small-scale manufacturing or indigenous things. I went to country Taiwan, and you know what? They take their bamboo and they create almost everything with bamboo. The only thing that they don't create is toilet paper with bamboo, right? But they create everything, from toothpicks to tables, to chairs, to bowls, everything, right? And then the fourth thing now that I'm talking about is indigenous languages. Now very quickly, I'm not going to be very long, just type in ILANGA, Ilanga News, NEWS.co.za. And don't get me wrong, I'm not against English, I'm not against French or any colonial or European language. I'm just saying is that we've got so much resources, right? Our indigenous food, our indigenous clothes, our indigenous languages, our indigenous cultures. If you modernize that, then you can create a lot of secondary industries. You create an entire value chain for people where they can create wealth for themselves and jobs. You got that? Okay, which newspaper is that? Ilanga. Which language newspaper is that? Is it Xhosa, right? And it's online. So it's not that these things do not exist. It is there. But how many of you have ever thought of starting your own advertising company, right? To produce advertisements in Xhosa or in Zulu or any other African language, right? You see how this thing just broadens in scope. Because if you have a newspaper, what does it mean? You must have journalists that can write in the language. You must have editors that can edit those newspapers. You must have advertising agencies that can produce adverts in those languages. You see how this entire value chain starts to create more and more and more industries and more jobs. Okay? So that is another exercise for you. Come up. I want to see in Ghana, what language do you speak in Ghana? Indigenous language. Right? Is there a newspaper for that? Is there a TV channel for that? And you mustn't become like my daughter. She doesn't want to speak my mother's language, Afrikaans. She only wants to speak English. Now that she's as tall as you and as big as you, said, why didn't you ever teach me a bit of Afrikaans? Because she's traveling to the Netherlands. And she's traveling to Belgium and those places, and there they speak Dutch. And Dutch and Afrikaans is similar, almost similar.
Yeah.
She said, Jumos, but now I'm at a disadvantage. Right? Yes.
Yes, I just want to highlight to the delegates that it doesn't only, it is not only limited to, it is not only limited to only creating restaurants or fashion line. It extends to paintwork. There's a guy called Nelson Magano who recently collaborated with Porsche South Africa to design the rear and inside the interior of the car, as well as there is a guy called Rheede. You know him, he recently launched his furniture line. It's called Nyoka. It's still brand new.
It spans everything. Engineering. If you go to UWC, where I studied, University of the Western Cape, if you look at that library was inspired by African engineering, African styling. Right? Often I go to some of these, very rich suburbs in Pretoria. Then they say, no, but these houses are Indonesian-style houses. In Bali, we call it Bali Village. I said, what the hell? Bali Village in South Africa. Where's the Xhosa-style villages? And then sushi. My wife introduced me to sushi. Now, I come from the West Coast. There we eat a lot of snook and fish and stuff like that. I said, but yes, it's a nice Japanese-style dish, but it's taken over the entire landscape. And yes, I love sushi, but I want to see African wild life dishes, for example. African potato, African dishes. That has a unique flavor to itself. Okay, then the last one. I don't want to leave you with this. I just want you to type in hydro veggies. Hydro veggie, HIDROVEGGIE.co.za. Right? Now that's a company that specializes in what they call hydroponics. Right? Especially in view of climate change and all of these issues that people face and water shortages. Right? So when you look at those new methods of agriculture, that's also the next exercise. Right? How do you bring it back to say, but this is a new type of farming that costs less, and has a little risk to it, but it requires a lot of science. I want to emphasize, I heard people say land. I tell you, the village where I come from, we have enough land, right? But we do not have the expertise. Land in itself does not produce food, right? It's expertise. So if you're really serious about agriculture, right? Next time when you come here, I want you to wear an overall, right? Take off those blinking of those rings and those earrings and all of those things, right? And then I'm going to take you to a farm, and you'll spend that day on that farm. And then we will see who are really serious about farming. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you so much. What a while. Thank you so much. Okay, delegates, I'm going to hand it back to the chair who's going to tell us how we're going to work. Please note we don't have a lot of time. So whatever we're doing now, let's be strategic. Yes, thank you.
Program Director.
Delegates, we are going to step out for lunch, but before then, ma'am would like to leave. So I would like for us to quickly rally outside just for a group photo with ma'am, and then you guys can go get something to eat. Virtual delegates, please be back at 2 for closing statements and voting. Present delegates, please be back sooner than that. Quickly rally outside, and then we'll be with you in a moment. Thank you, delegates.